Saint Noire is an Amazon Echo integrated murder mystery board game in which you take the role of a private investigator attempting to puzzle out which of the 12 suspects is the murderer. Alexa, open Saint Noire.
X2 Games presents Saint Noire.
When the game begins, the Echo will play a produced audio piece that will tell you the story of who was murdered and what type of weapon was used. Either a blunt weapon, a bladed weapon, or a firearm. In the game, you have 7 nights to find the culprit. In each night, you have 3 actions you can take, so a total of 21 actions before the murderer gets away. There are 3 different actions you can take, all of which are asked directly to your Amazon Echo, and each will result in a dramatic telling of what happened. Alexa, question Sheriff Kilmer.
Sheriff Kilmer, local lawman around these parts.
First, you can question a suspect by asking them where they were on the night of the murder. Alexa, where were you on the night of the murder?
Well, look at you, sounding like a real detective and all. I was at the bookstore. Get that into your timeline.
Once you know where the suspect was located, you can ask who was present at any locations adjacent to them. Alexa, who was at the community college?
Well, I saw Dr. Welker over there, sure.
What did they want?
Ain't that the million-dollar question, detective?
The final action you could take is to search a location. This will tell you which item is located at that site. Alexa, search the bookstore.
Oracle books. A fitting scene for a Greek tragedy. Aluminum bat, hidden under a cabinet. I suppose softball season is right around the corner.
When questioned, some suspects will always tell you the truth, but others will lie to you. Using logic, you need to deduce which suspects are being honest, so you can piece together where each suspect was on the night of the murder. Knowing that the actual murderer will always lie to you, you need to figure out which lying suspect was at the location with the type of weapon used to kill the victim. When you think you've figured it out, you can accuse them of the crime. But be careful, you only have 2 chances to make accusations. If you're right, you'll arrest the hood and be known as the greatest private dick to ever ankle the streets of that rotten burg, Saint Noire. Saint Noire. Now, this is a game I was really excited about, and I pre-ordered it not even really knowing much about the gameplay of it. Mostly I was excited that it was an Amazon Echo integrated murder mystery board game that was designed by the original founder of the Atari Corporation. So I was excited. I wanted to see what they were going to do with this new technology. And I'll say, when I first opened up the box and I got out all the components, I was blown away. This thing looks really cool. The board is well done. The cards have beautiful sort of minimalistic artwork on them. The production was well done. They got all this cool like silver inking on it that just looks really neat. Everything was cool about it. And when I started up the app, I loved the way the app sounded, the cool ambient music and the acting and the drama and the writing was fun. It's not the best in the world, but it was fun. It gave it a really good experience. But when I read the rulebook and got into the game, I was slightly disappointed. The reason I was disappointed was mostly because I expected it to be a murder mystery board game, and it really isn't a murder mystery at all. That's really just the theme of the game. Really what you're getting here is mostly I would call it almost like a logic puzzle, that you go about solving this puzzle by asking a bunch of questions of the different suspects on the board. So yes, I was disappointed. I thought maybe that, what the people would say would have some bearing on the figuring out the puzzle, but no. The things they say are just kind of fluffy dialogue just to make it more fun, which is okay, but that's not what I expected going into it. So after I came to terms with the fact that I didn't get exactly what I wanted, do I like the game? Well, I kind of do. I think it's a pretty good game. It's not the best game, but I have fun playing it. Played it 8 times now, and that's a pretty good number of times over a week's span to not like a game, so I think I do like it. Now, when I say it's more of a logic puzzle, you really have 3 questions you can ask. Where were you on the night of the murder? Who was adjacent to you on the night of the murder? And then you can search a location and see what items are there. And you have to, it's a really weird thing because the rulebook doesn't exactly describe it very well, what you're trying to figure out. And really what you're trying to figure out is who is honest. Because if you figure out who is honest, then you can trust their answers to find out where other people who are lying are. And then you need to find the one liar that is in the same location as the type of weapon that killed the victim. Going through all of this questioning process is fun. It's really kind of cool to see where everybody was, and it is fun to hear the dialogue that they give you and all this different stuff. So it's fun to figure out the puzzle. Now, I will say that the puzzle does have a shelf life, despite the fact that it is completely random and that every single instance of the game, the murderer is different, the location of all the suspects and all of the items is different. So you're going to have a different game every time you play, but the puzzle of the game is the exact same every time. The way you go about figuring out the answers to this puzzle is the same every time. And I'm pretty sure there is one best procedure to go through to figure that out. After you've played it so many times, you're like, okay, I know what I have to ask first. I know I have to figure out certain things first, and then I can go from there. And the puzzle, getting from A to B to C to D to the murderer is always the same every time at that point. Now, that doesn't make it bad because, like I said, I played it 8 times, and I had fun every time. But when I put this back in the box, am I going to get it back out very often? Probably not. So it does have a shelf life. That is for sure. Now, it does say on the box that it is 1 or more players, and that is an accurate representation of what this game is. It's a solo game that you can have company with you sitting around you while you play it. There's no difference between playing with 1 or 6 players. The game plays exactly the same. You're just going to sit around and talk about what to do next, which there isn't a whole lot of deduction involved. It's just who do you ask next? So it really is a solo game that you can have somebody nearby if you really want to. Now, one of the things I think kind of is annoying about the game is that the dialogue does get repetitive and old quickly. And the fact that none of that dialogue really matters until the final answer of what you're really asking is answered. The rest of the dialogue is irrelevant, and it does repeat a lot. The people say the same things pretty much all the time, and it gets really boring hearing the same thing over and over and over again after you've played it a number of times. Now, there's supposed to be a quick play option, which I've activated quick play, and it has not changed the experience at all. So I think that might be a bug, or I might be confused as to what quick play is supposed to be. I assumed it was just going to get you to the answers quicker so you didn't have to hear the same crap over and over again. I don't know if that's a bug or not, and bugs are fixable in this because the board game components are sheerly there for you to help you kind of remember where people are and who's honest and who's not. It really doesn't have any bearing on the actual game. As a matter of fact, you can play the game without the components at all if you wanted to. You just need to know where the locations are on the board. And after playing it 8 times now, I've memorized the whole thing. So I could play it without the board or the cards or any of that stuff and just the app. But you want those cool components. But it's funny that that is the way it is. But they could fix any of those bugs anytime they wanted, you know? So at this point, right now, the bugs that I've encountered so far could possibly have been fixed. And that's, I guess, one thing I do want to I want to mention it even though it might not be relevant after a while, but I did encounter some bugs. A lot of times when you're questioning the suspects, if you ask them to repeat, it forgets that you were questioning them, and then you lose an action because you asked the wrong thing and it got confused. I've had it jump around to rounds by accident every now and then. Like, it jumped from round 3 to 5 at one point. It went back from round 6 to round 3 at one point. But I sort of figured out how to manage that, and I think they're going to fix a lot of those bugs over time because it is an app, and they can just roll out fixes really quickly and you wouldn't even notice that it happened. So I wouldn't be too fired up about that. The game of the game is all that really matters here. Now, all in all, I like the game. I think it's fun. After I came to terms with the fact that I wasn't getting a murder mystery game like I wanted, I realized it's a fun game. I've played it 8 times. I paid $40 for it. Feel like I got my money's worth. So it was a fun experience of a game. I like where they're going with this Amazon Echo integrated type stuff. I feel like this was more of a proof of concept than an actual fully realized board game. I think they could go even more with like a sort of a second edition or a new version of this game, part 2 kind of thing, where some of that dialogue did matter into the deduction of who the murderer was. But without that stuff, it's still a fun logic puzzle game that might be fun to sit down with your spouse or your kids or whatever and go through the process a few times. I thought it was a good game. Production's stellar. Not the best thing in the world, but it's a cool direction for technology in board games. So check out Saint Noire if that sounds interesting to you. Thanks so much, everybody. If you've enjoyed this video, please do us a giant favor by subscribing to the channel and clicking that wacky bell icon. If you're into board games, miniatures games, role-playing games, we have a bunch of audio podcasts you might enjoy. You can find those at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes and Stitcher.